What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for the latest episode of Broncos Now. As always, I'm your host, Sydney Jones, and coming up on today's episode, we'll take a look at the team's decision to pick up Jerry Jeudy's fifth-year option. Plus, the Broncos added to their defensive line room. We'll find out who and more coming up. Joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio for today's episode is Broncos lead writer Aric DiLalla. Aric, thanks for joining the show today. How's it going?
It's going really nicely. Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Finally recovered after draft weekend? Feeling a little bit better?
Yeah, not a ton of picks, but there was a lot of excitement on day 2 of the draft in particular. Nice to get to talk to a few of those guys and see how the class came together. We'll be looking forward to meeting them in person at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Aric, as you know, it's been kind of a slow week here, but a couple interesting things to talk about today. First off, I know the Broncos exercised Jerry Jeudy's fifth-year option. General Manager George Paton, he said all along that, they really liked Jerry and wanted him to be here, but they got the deed done on Monday. What'd you think about that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. It went along with what George Paton, Sean Payton has said all along. Mm-hmm. They wanted Jerry Jeudy here. He wasn't going anywhere. Obviously, a lot of teams called about him. There were reports about that as far back as March, and they continued really during the draft. But it was clear the Broncos see him as a piece of the future here. So now under contract through 2024 on his rookie deal after you pick up that option there from a financial standpoint, a reasonable number. But then also just you have a guy now that really played well down the stretch. And if you look at how he compares to some of the league's top receivers, if you look at that final 5-week stretch, Jerry Jeudy was right up there, I think 6th maybe in receiving yards, I believe 4th in receptions. He was right up there. He's a guy that through his first 3 seasons, I believe he's played 41 career games, if I'm remembering correctly. He's right up there in terms of some of the most productive receivers in team history. And so it's easy to look at Jerry Jeudy and say, okay, well, you expect a lot, right, of the 15th overall pick, and you want a lot, and it hasn't always panned out because he dealt with some injuries a couple of years ago. Obviously, his rookie year, just some kind of getting into the league struggles, but he really turned it on at the end of last year. And the hope is with Sean Payton that he'll be able to know how to use Jerry Jeudy, how to put him in position to succeed. And the thing I like about Jerry is that you've got a lot of different receivers on this team, right? You've got Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick, who are big guys. Yeah. You've got Marvin Mims now, who's a fast guy. Jerry Jeudy, he just kind of has this it factor about him where he can get open. He can make plays down the field, but also can make plays kind of in traffic, quickly gain separation from the defender. He just does things that I don't think anybody else in the receiving core really does. And so
he's definitely different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to keep him here is a big deal. And, we'll see what happens kind of long term. Does he get extended? All that. Those are things that'll be decided down the road. But to know that you have Jerry Jeudy here for at least 2 more years, it's a great thing.
Yep, definitely a good move by the Broncos. Aric, the team also announced this week that they've added a defensive lineman as part of the NFL's International Player Pathway Program. Haggai Chisom Ndubuisi, kind of difficult, Ndubuisi of Nigeria, he was allocated to the team. What do you know about him?
Yeah, it's kind of a cool story. So the International Player Pathway Program started back in 2017, and essentially what they do is they give players from different countries the opportunity to compete for a roster spot. And so, this year there's a lot of players from Nigeria, but there's also players from Europe, from Australia. And with Haggai in particular, I believe he played basketball and soccer growing up. And, American football was not something that they had the infrastructure there for. And so he discovered the game watching YouTube and saw that, decided he wanted to play football, started kind of going through some of the drills he found online, had a group of friends he did this with. And then there was essentially like an academy or a camp that was put together in Africa by Osi Umenyiora, former Giants player, obviously won a Super Bowl there with them, great pass rusher. He held a camp in Africa for some of these kids to get some more exposure. And Haggai was able to go to that, impressed kind of the group there. He then went to a camp in London that was run by the NFL, impressed more people there, got a chance to come to the NFL's Player Pathway Program, at which point, a year ago at this point, he was assigned to a Cardinals, and so he played there. And spent some time with them in the offseason. I believe played in one preseason game before he was waived, and then went through it again this year. And so that what essentially in the final stage of this program, there were 13 guys that they go through the process. It's less about like lifting and running and more about understanding football, kind of on-field things, and getting you ready at the IMG Academy in Florida. They then had a pro day. The Broncos were able to go down there and watch Haggai, and then you kind of, I think, rank which players you want to be allocated. One player was allocated to each AFC West team, and I believe NFC North is the other division.
Okay.
And so all that to say, he's here now.
Right.
Played offensive line a year ago, but is going to play defensive line for the Broncos. A big guy, Sydney, 6'7", 323.
Really big.
So really big, but I think they like his potential there. And the cool thing is right now he doesn't count against the 90-man roster limit. So you don't have to worry about, are you using this spot for somebody that could potentially make the team?
Right.
I think the NFL understands this is a developmental sort of position, and it gives him a chance to learn, to work with the team without kind of feeling maybe the pressure of having to keep that roster spot.
Yeah.
Once we get to the season and you cut down to 53, then he would count against the 53. But
But if he makes the team.
Yeah, so if he makes the
Then
team,
he
that'd be
deserves
great,
that spot.
of course. If he doesn't make the team and clears waivers, then you can bring him back to the practice squad. And again, he would not count against the practice squad.
Oh, okay.
And so my understanding is he did not stick on with Arizona last year, but potentially a position change could help him here. And it'll be cool to see. I mean, what a great experience.
Great program.
I know you put together the call that he had with Darren Muji and some of the Broncos, defensive line coach Marcus Dixon. So you could tell the emotion he had, and just to come from a place where maybe he thought he'd never get the opportunity to play American football, and is now with his second NFL team. Just a really cool sort of deal. So excited to meet him when he gets out here. He's eligible to join the Broncos at their rookie mini camp, and I'm sure he'll make the most of this opportunity.
Yep. You could tell in that video that the team's excited to have him here too.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Eric, I know you wrote an article on DenverBroncos.com about ESPN's Todd McShay. He identified cornerback Riley Moss as the Broncos, best value pick in this year's draft. What do you think kind of went into that decision for him?
Yeah, well, it's only 5 picks, so it makes it a little bit
less to choose from.
Yeah, less to choose from. But he did say the Broncos made some good selections, and I think Riley Moss, just his ability to make plays on the ball. We've seen him intercept a lot of passes. I think 3 pick sixes of at least 30 yards at Iowa. He just seems to have a knack for making those plays. And so I think McShay kind of looked at that playmaking ability, where they were able to get him in the 3rd round, even though you do give up a 3rd rounder next year, and saw that value for the Broncos. And he's a guy that, Sean Payton said he's going to play corner, but McShay looks at him and says, okay, well, if he needs to, and Sydney, we sit here in May and we talk so much about, here's where this guy's going to play, here's where this guy's going to play. When you get to the season and injuries happen, you have to start moving people around, and it gets a little it's just not as perfect sometimes as you want it to be. So McShay thinks that he could also play nickel if he needs to. He could also play safety if he needs to. So some versatility there.
Definitely.
And, if he ends up being we'll have to see what happens. Maybe he tries to push Damari Mathis for a starting job. Maybe he's a reserve player in year one. We'll have to see kind of where that goes. I have a hard time believing he's going to push PS2 for a first-team All-Pro spot. But
can't imagine.
We'll see. But so, either way, if he's able to be CB2, CB3, even CB4, it's a spot that the Broncos needed some depth at. And if he's able to make a big contribution, there's certainly value there.
Yeah, definitely agree. Last but not least, Eric, it was announced on Thursday that Demaryius Thomas was elected to the Georgia Tech Sports Hall of Fame. And of course, this comes a week after being inducted to the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame here. I mean, another well-deserved honor for him.
Yeah, and obviously now it's kind of as much about remembering his legacy and for his parents as anything else. And we spoke with his mother, Katina Smith, at the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame, and she said one thing Demaryius said a lot was when his career ended, he didn't want to be forgotten. And so when you go into the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame, when you go into the Georgia Tech Sports Hall of Fame, those are ways for people to remember you.
Absolutely.
And he had an incredible career at Georgia Tech. I believe his senior year, 1,100 yards, averaged more than 25 yards a catch, I believe.
Wow.
Georgia Tech won an ACC championship. I mean, he had a big time impact, and a team that didn't throw the ball a ton, but when they did, you knew it was going down the sideline to Demaryius Thomas, and he was going to catch the ball and make a big play. He ranks in the top 10 in nearly every receiving category in Georgia Tech history. And he made a name for himself there, became a first-round pick that the Broncos selected. Then obviously we all know what he did here. So happy for DT's memory to kind of live on, and for his parents and those that know him and care about him to feel that love and recognition as well.
Yeah, you said it. Definitely a great way for his legacy to live on.
Yep.
Well, we should have another couple exciting weeks here. I know head coach Sean Payton said rookie minicamp will be in the next couple weeks or so, and I know it's been reported that the schedule release might be next week. So
it's exciting. The schedule's my favorite.
Exciting.
Can't wait.
I know it is. Well, Eric, appreciate your time.
You got it.
And the Broncos veteran additions have their new numbers. Take a look. To name a few, quarterback Jarrett Stidham will wear number 4. Wide receiver Marquez Callaway will wear 11. Punter Riley Dixon, 19. Running back Samaje Perine, 25. Tackle Mike McGlinchey, 69. Guard Ben Powers, 74. Tight end Adam Troutman will wear 82. Tight end Chris Manert will wear 84. And defensive end Zach Allen will wear 99. Plus, defensive tackle DJ Jones will now wear number 93 after wearing 97 his first season here with the Broncos. Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now. Broncos Country, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube next week for another episode. See you all then.